Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I have another video for you today. We're using some products from W+9. I love this Christmas rose. I have used it multiple times in the past. I'm using it again today. I have some birthday sentiments, and then I pulled out this Christmas one because I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. And then the 5x7 layers that I did not end up using, and these scripted backgrounds, which I think are beautiful. So we're going to start with the background. It's a little bit different for me today, but I think that that's a good thing, the branching out. Also, we're going to do some watercolor because several of you requested it when I asked you what you wanted to see. So this is a story about a card that was going beautifully and then something happened to it. Now, we'll get to that during story time. I had a completely different story planned. I was going to tell you all about Thanksgiving, but then I made this card and things went horribly awry. So let's talk about the background first. So here I am stamping with some frayed burlap, and I'm not looking for a perfect, you're going to see, I'm really not looking for perfect stamping, because if I was looking for perfect stamping, I certainly would not be stamping in Distress ink. I love Distress ink, but I don't love the way that it stamps. It's kind of blotchy. But I needed an ink that was going to be reactive with water for about the things that I'm going to do next. So first off, I didn't want it to be perfect. I wanted it to be more of an organic background. So I'm going to spritz it with some water. I'm going to make that ink run. I think it makes it more interesting and less texty, more neutral. And then I'm going to go in with a wet baby wipe and I'm just going to start blotting it up. I'm going to blot some color off. I'm going to blot some droplets off. And I'm just going to be happy with the way that it looks because this is totally kind of organic. I'm just letting it happen the way it happens. I'm also smushing down the frayed burlap and I'm going to add some spatters. Again, this is not my usual style. This is something that maybe you would see in more of a shabby chic style, which is not my jam at all. Not even kind of. We don't even live in the same neighborhood, me and the shabby chic. But that doesn't mean that you can't use some elements of things in your own style. And so this card is definitely clean and layered, but I wouldn't categorize it as shabby chic. But I can see how the background definitely would be. And you totally could add layers to this and build it up with like some florals and things like that. And definitely it would fit if that's your jam, but it's not mine. So after I did the spatters of the ink, I'm also going to go in and spatter some gold perfect pearls. I just had some that was left over in my tray. And so I just reconstituted them with some water and then spattered that on. And then I am going to dry it. Now, if you don't care where your embossing powder sticks, that's fine. But I didn't want it to cover up my perfect pearls. And I knew if I put my embossing powder on there while it was wet, it would turn the gold from my perfect pearls into the gold embossing. And that's what I didn't want. But then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to stamp this stamp some more. Yes, I am. And this time I'm going to emboss it. So, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. And when I stamped the text this time with the intention of embossing it, I didn't even treat it with my anti-static tool because I don't really care where it sticks. As long as it's not covering up my gold spatters from my perfect pearls, I didn't really care where it went. So once I stamped that down, and I didn't even take the time to ink it well with Versamark, I just tapped it on there a couple of times and then moved on with my life. But I was really pleasantly surprised with how well I liked the background. And right now it seems like a lot. But by the time we get done with the watercolor, because that is definitely our focal point, it really does kind of fall to the background and isn't so in your face. So here I'm just making sure that I get all the embossing powder melted and smooth because I did have some that stuck in some other areas because I didn't use the anti-static tool. So I'm just heat setting everything all over to make sure I don't have any of those granules that are sticking up off of the paper. By the way, I'm working on a Canson watercolor paper. It's Canson Monteval watercolor paper. I don't like the XL. That's just, I don't feel like pigments move very well on it. It's more of a student grade paper, which is totally fine. If you're happy with the results, but I have never been happy with the results. So I do the Monteval. It's relatively inexpensive and I'm happy with that one. So again, I just stamped the same thing up top and did the heat embossing. Again, it seems like so much is happening in this background and it's wild, but the image that we have is very large and the majority of this is going to be covered up, so don't stress about it too much. Also, another reason why I don't care where my embossing is going, because again, most of it's going to be covered up. It's really just to set a mood, if you will. The background is just setting our mood. So from there, we're going to go to the actual stamping of the image, which is this Christmas rose. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to heat emboss it in gold. You certainly don't have to if you want to go for more of a no line coloring look, or you could do the bold black outline, like whatever vibe you're feeling. But I wanted to do the embossing because embossing makes watercolor fester. This time I am treating with my anti-static tool because I do care where my embossing powder goes. I'm also stamping in the gold ink from Honeybee Stamps. It's a gold pigment ink to get like a really good solid outline. What was I saying? Does anybody know? Does anybody remember? The Christmas, it's a large image. Nope, I don't remember where I was going with that. But, oh, for the no line, like, yeah, you can do it any way that you would like it, but I liked the gold for the embossing because it traps the watercolor. That's what I was talking about. So that way I can work in areas that are wet, that are right next to each other, and I don't have to wait on them to dry. Now, I don't work with a lot of water anyway, so my stuff is typically dry by the time I make it back around, but because I'm doing a couple of different colors here, we're going to talk about the tip-to-tip technique with the Karin markers. That is, I wanted to just be able to work quickly because I knew I was doing multiple layers. Multiple layers take more time. You get what I'm saying. So here, I think that this would be super pretty as a monochromatic card. That was one of the things you guys challenged me to do also, and this is not going to be the card we do it. So here, for my watercoloring, when I'm using pens, pencils, markers, I like to go in, put my ink down where it's going to be the darkest, directly on dry paper, and then I take a damp brush. I start on the end I want to be the lightest, and then I bring in my clean water to my pigment and then let it kind of spread out. This gives me a ton of control. You don't want your water to be bubbled up. You want your surface to just be damp. So when you're blotting your brush, you want to blot the base of the brush because that will remove all the extra moisture while still leaving enough water in the tip of the brush for you to be able to move your pigment around. So here I just wanted to show you that you could go down the center of it and add shading that way. And in that case, I just start in the center of the petal. I'm actually doing one side and one side. But I start in the petal, center of the petal, and then again bring the clean water to my pigment. I decided that I liked them much better with the pigment being more centralized, and so that is how I colored all the rest of them, and that is how I colored this one from here on out. This is just my base layer, so we're going to speed this up. So now that you've seen how we kind of do this, and I do it the same for each one of the flowers, for the leaves, the whole deal. So just a little bit of water. And you will see here that as I'm going, I'm not necessarily blotting off my paintbrush. And that's because as you do this, you kind of learn how much water you need to pick up so that you don't have a ton extra. If your water is bubbled up and you have too much water down, you run a bigger risk of not having any control over where your pigment goes, which I think is really fun and really beautiful. That's not what I was going for here though. But it also increases the chances of blooms where you have the color that kind of blooms out from wherever you have put it down, and it isn't even. I wanted an even watercolor for this one. Now everything is dry because I work with such a minimal amount of water. I'm going in and I'm putting down a second layer. This color is hold on, it's not that one. It's pale peach. Maybe it's just peach. Soft peach. I apologize. It is soft peach. And I thought that was really pretty for the poinsettia. And then the other flowers included in the set are hellebores. So here, again, just going through, putting down that second layer of color, everything the same. You can see we're starting to get some really good dimension. And you could totally stop at this point. Or you could continue to add more layers if you wanted some darker shadows. But I'm going to do the tip-to-tip technique. So what the tip-to-tip technique is, this is something that's very unique to Karin markers. You can also do it with water, any like water-based markers. So people do it with Tombows as well, where you take the tip of the lighter color and kind of rub it on the tip of the darker color, and then you can pick up that pigment and put them down, and they're already kind of like mixed together. So for me, I'm using the red. I did not want to take the red direct to the paper because I was very afraid it was going to completely overtake my peach, and that I did not want. I just wanted some deeper shadows. So each time I'm rubbing it on there, I did show you for just like 2 petals. If you take it direct to, like here's the red, you just put a little dot down and then you can blend it out with your lighter color. That will also work. But I liked doing the tip to tip because it kind of mixes them together already. And you can see now we're getting some really good shadows. So we're starting to build up that dimension. And you can tell, it's hard to tell on the camera, I know, but you can tell in real life when the pigment you've picked up starts to run out. And then once you're done doing this, you can just, like I would just scribble the peach marker down until there was no more red in it, and then you can put your cap on them and you haven't damaged your markers, you haven't damaged your nibs, you can continue using them as you normally would. But this is a really great way to get more out of the sets that you have. So like for me, I only have 2 of the sets. I have I think it's the skin tones and the brights. I only have 2 sets of Karins, but because I can kind of mix the markers, it allows me to extend those colors further out. I will tell you that right now, Blick Art, or otherwise known as Dick Blick, has them on sale for, I think, $23.59 or $23.69, something like that. So if you've been interested in getting into those, oh, my dogs are barking at my child probably. I also probably should have mentioned the Dawn W+9 is also having a sale. She's having a 30% off sale through this weekend from Black Friday. So if you find some products that you love, or you love like kind of some more like super cute animals, but they're drawn in more of like a sophisticated way. I don't know how that makes sense, but it does. She has a very unique style. And then also florals, like she knocks florals out of the park. So now that the poinsettia is done for the petals, I'm going to go in with a pale orange and a ochre for the center. Because we've done heat embossing, there really isn't much of the center because a lot of it is embossed, but I'm just going to go in and touch base there. And then we're going to move on to the hellebores. I am going to have to speed this up some because, as you can tell, we're already 13 minutes in, my friends. And it's a long one. Plus, I have to tell you all about my mishap, which isn't until the end of the card. So here, again, putting down where I want the color to be the darkest. This time I am using the, I think it's called Cerise. It's like a bright pink. And a purple for my shading. So I'm just going to lay down my base color with the pinks, and then I'm going to use the tip to tip technique with the purple to get more of a shadow in there. And then we're going to talk about some color theory and how we use that when it comes to card making. And how I used it with the watercolor. So here's where we're doing the tip to tip technique. I'm adding a little bit of shading at just the tips of the petals as well to give them a little bit of roundness. And then of course at the base where they meet their center, they will be darker. This one is tucked up underneath this poinsettia, so it's going to be quite a bit darker than the other petals. Same for the one just to the left of it. So yeah, I have always been a person who liked 1-layer cards, and I have always been a person who didn't love dies. And so when I did my cards, like before the introduction of the Misty, I had all these like tips and tricks for how to get a sentiment down on a 1-layer card and still have it be seen. Let's talk color theory. So here, the red violet, across from the red violet is a green. Now I want to tone down this pink because it's just a smidge too bright. So I'm going to put down a little bit of yellow green and a lot of pink, and then I'm going to take it and I'm just going to glaze over my petal. And you can see how its opposite totally knocks back that brightness and makes it a little bit more desaturated. And that is incredibly helpful, again, when you only have minimal sets and you need to stretch what you have. So I chose to do that little trick, that little color glazing trick with the yellow green, instead of purchasing another pack that maybe would have a more desaturated color that would match my peach better. Plus, the flower was already colored, y'all. You guys know I'm not starting over, and you're really gonna see it by the end of this bad boy. I am not starting over. I am committed. We are married to this thing. But anyway, so I had all these tips and tricks for like how to get sentiments on 1-layer cards and still make them legible and readable and make sense. And it's been a long time since I've had to use any of those, because a lot of times, like, the sentiments I will put on top. So it isn't a true necessarily 1-layer card. Unless I've worked it into a scene, then it is. And the sentiment I would have already stamped, and it would have been like a picture on the wall or, a sign on the countertop or some such business. But this time, y'all, this card got me. It got me so good. So then, again, I'm going to use that little bit of yellow and a lot of pink, whatever your counterpart is. So, like here, my flower is red violet, and the green is the complementary color. You want to make sure you're using just a little bit of the complementary color and more of the color that you're using on whatever it is that you're coloring, like your main color, because a little bit goes a long way. So now for these leaves, I really wanted navy leaves, but all I have is this royal blue. So I decided that I was going to commit to the royal blue. I really like the way that this whole color scheme ended up coming out, because I love this navy next to this peach. Stop it. I mean, it's so pretty. It's so for me. It's for me. I feel like they're very beautiful together. So anyway, I went in with it looks like a royal blue. It could just be called blue. I can't. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. It is called royal blue. Look at me. I didn't even know that's what it was called. But I mean, that's the color. It's not really that impressive, Kelly. So anywho, after I put down the royal blue, I did go in with a little bit of turquoise to just kind of make them more interesting. And I thought it would darken them up some. And so I went over it with the turquoise. This is not tip to tip. This is more of a color glazing technique, which you can also do to get a little bit more variation. You guys know I love my color variation. But the tip to tip for this one is actually black. I know, it's terrifying, but we're doing it anyway. Isn't that exciting? So I am using the blue, and I am tip to tip with my black to help me make a more navy color. It is still very vibrant, as you can see. And they're always more vibrant when they're wet, just FYI. So you may want to wait until your pieces are dry before you decide whether or not you need to glaze over with its complement to knock it back some. But these are still very bright, and I wanted them to just be knocked back a notch. So we are going to go back to our color wheel here shortly. For these other leaves, I went in directly with the turquoise, and then I did the tip to tip with the ocean teal. Isn't that fun? So they have two different kinds of teals in this brights set, which I appreciate because I love a good teal. Not as much as I love a navy, but it's pretty close. So again, putting down our color where we want it to be the darkest and then spreading that out. Here is where we're doing the tip to tip technique with the ocean teal and just adding in some little deeper, darker shadows. I was, like I said, loved the way that this color combination came out, even though I had no idea this was the way I was going when I started. I thought I was going to go more muted colors, and that's why I picked the peach, but then I looked up hellebores and they were so pretty. So on the color wheel here, we can see blue's complement is orange. And so in order to knock that back, I need to use some orange. For this one, I used equal parts because the royal blue is so strong. But then I just went right over, and it does knock back that brightness and makes them a little bit closer to navy, a little less royal, if you will. And I was thrilled with the way that they looked. That was the last thing that I did to this piece, and it is done. It is painted. It is complete. Here's where I'm going to ruin it. So I'm going to cut it out with its companion die, which is really nice and convenient. I'm also going to cut out 2 more. Here you can see how well this is working together, but I'm going to cut out 2 more of the companion dies just to use as a to give it some weight. So it's almost like adding foam tape, but not. And now here's where everything's going to go awry. It's going to go horribly, horribly wrong. And I wanted to leave this in, even though this video is like 5 ever long. And I had to fast forward through quite a bit of the painting, and I apologize, but I feel like this is important to include. So here was my original game plan, okay? I was going to put my flower down, and then I'm going to put this oval, which is from the 5x7 die cut set. I'm going to put this oval underneath it. It'll fill in that bottom right-hand corner and give us a nice place for our sentiment to lay and our eyes to rest. But this particular sentiment, so I chose the birthday ones because I liked it enough that I wanted to give it to my sister for her birthday, which is in December. So I put the birthday down, and I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, like, the happy birthday wishes, the happy and the wishes will fit on the oval, so I'm good with that. I'm going to stamp the birthday over my flowers. I'm going to move the flowers and then stamp it again over the oval so that everything lines up. That's my game plan, okay? Sounds tricky, but that's actually not the part that went wrong. This is the part that went wrong. So I stamped it down on my flowers. This did move on me, but I was able to line it back up, so it wasn't really an issue. I stamped down the birthday in the gold again, and then I heat embossed everything, and it was, instant regret. Instant regret. It was a hot mess. So you couldn't read the birthday on the oval was fine. You couldn't read it on the flowers. You literally cannot read it. So now I go to my arsenal of how am I going to make this legible? I could have outlined it in black, but I had nothing else black on my card. So I decided, can you see my little hair wispies in the corner there? So I decided I'm going to outline it in white. This does not work. I have to scratch this idea. I still cannot read the birthday portion. So then I heat emboss it on navy, but I have no matching die, so I'm going to fussy cut it out. So I do that. And you know what? It's hideous. I don't like it at all. Not even kind of. So I scratch that. Like, I wanted to show you how many times I tried to fix this. So here, this is one of the rectangular dies from that same set. It was too big. It covered up too much of the flower. I didn't like it. So from a completely different company, I found these little circle dies. And I was like, okay, maybe I can fit it on a circle. It won't cover up as much of the flower, but I'll still be able to hide the embossing that I did to ruin my flowers. So I stamp out the happy birthday wishes. I treat it with my embossing tool, and then I'm going to speed up like a crazy mad woman all of the stamping, because you've seen me now gold heat emboss every single thing on this card like 6 times. So this is the sentiment I ended up going with. It says happy birthday wishes. It's super cute. The circle is way too big. It's way too big. But I need it to cover up the poor job I did with the birthday. So here it is. It's huge. I don't like it at all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Kelly, why? Why did you ruin this? Why? Why did you do this? But I did it. So here I have a smaller die, and I'm like, I'm going to make this work. So now I have the smaller die. I like that better. You can see more of my pretty flowers. It's covering it up, but then I got this whole bottom right-hand side that's just naked. It's just empty. There's no balance to this design because my sentiment was supposed to go there, and now it's not. The sentiment is also, somebody had asked me in a video, Kelly, when do you use the rule of thirds? Now, this is when you use the rule of thirds. But see, the problem is I can't, because the part I need to cover up is dead center in the middle of my card, y'all. So trying to figure out how I can fill up that empty space. So I stamped just a portion of the same Christmas rose bouquet, and then I heat embossed it, but I didn't take the time to color it until I checked to make sure I was going to be happy with it. Then I colored it. Ta-da! Magic! And now I will be able to put my sentiment there and it won't end up looking so empty on the bottom. I cannot change the fact that my sentiment is in the middle of my card. I tried turning it. I tried flipping it upside down, trying it landscape. Nothing worked because it was the part that I needed to cover up was dead center in the middle of my card, but on the bottom or the top or the side, but I could not find a way to get it into a third. And so consequently, this card does not look as good as it could have. But sometimes you just have to accept that it is what it is. Is it as good as it could have been? No, I don't think it is. Is it good enough? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is. It is plenty good enough. For my sister's birthday, probably not. But for somebody else's birthday, you betcha. But my sister is special. So here I've glued down the secondary water piece color flat. The other ones I added my, here I had a little boo-boo. I got some green on my petal, so I was just cleaning that up. I stacked them up with the die cut sentiments. I messed around with this. I hemmed and hawed and sighed and chastised myself and tried to be like, can you make this work? You cannot make this work. It's not a good look for you. I told you I couldn't let it go, but eventually I just had to accept that it was okay, that it wasn't going to be perfect, and it was still going to be pretty, and it was okay. So sometimes, even when you know all the rules, like you mess it up and things go awry, and it's still all right in the end. So here I just went ahead and glued it down and accepted it was going to be in the middle. I did use a couple little pearls here to kind of guide the eye so it didn't look quite so centralized. And these are from Honeybee. This is the holiday pearls, and I used the gold ones, which I think are beautiful. And then that is it. That is the whole card. So I have updated my sales page, W+9 having a 30% off sale. I will link that below. Thank you guys so much for shopping and your support. I hope you enjoyed this card and you learned a little something, mostly that you're normal if you're messing it up, just like I am. So I thank you so much for your time, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.